The Sanhedrin, I have to be honest with you, Zish, that when I read the simple words of Rashi throughout all the two dapim that we learned, Rashi seems to interpret our Mishnah and Sugya that the case is indeed what surprises you, that the Sanhedrin were kind of blind, I don't know what, Amaratzis. Maybe these are Sanhedrin that were hired by the Tzedok, the Greeks. There were periods that the Sanhedrin were not perhaps the most sharpened pencil in the Kalmar. How do you say the Kalmar? There is a term in Hebrew.
In English, not the sharpest tool in the shed.
Yeah, whatever, you understand. And Rashi goes ahead, and it seems from his simple wordings that his explanation that the mistake that is written in the Mishnah is that indeed the Sanhedrin were blind, and they said that chelav is mutter. They kind of had a very fundamental mistake in halacha. Okay? And the people of Israel went ahead and ruled it. Now, of course, we can minimize this, Zish. We can say that maybe they said that for some reason now, temporarily, chelav is mutter. And maybe that was their mistake, okay? And that's why, meaning I could further refine this. Let's say they thought that now we're in a situation of pikuach nefesh, and therefore everyone has to eat chelav because of pikuach nefesh. And it turned out that they were totally mistaken, and there was no need for the public to eat chelav. The people would have survived with eating shuman, okay? They had a mistake. Now, I think that the Mishnah is also true regarding a mistake that you mentioned, that they had a mistake regarding the item. I assume this is also true. Okay? This is what seems for me the pshat of the sugyas.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Two things. First of all, in Masechet Sotah, she has to be warned, so she knows already. Otherwise, he cannot accuse her of Sotah.
Miki, I want to respond to this first remark. He just quoted the verse.
Okay.
But no. But I want to say, I'm not talking about a case of Isha Sotah necessarily. As you know, if there are two witnesses without even Sotah, without warning, if there are two witnesses that a lady cheated on her wife, okay, I'm influenced from the 21st century. Okay, if there are two witnesses that a lady cheated on her husband and slept with another guy, even if she wasn't warned, her husband is not allowed to be with her anymore. And I'm talking about this case, okay?
Okay, and the second is during the Shoah, many things that are usually forbidden were allowed to survive.
Nachon? Of course, that's the case that I said about Pikuach Nefesh, of course. Okay, Chaverim, I want to, Gabe and Daniel, before you came in, I just said that I had thoughts about what to do today. To share about Kal Eretz Israel, continue a little bit about more shitot regarding the doubts, or go on in the Gemara, and I decided to go on with the Gemara. Yeah, but Zish only had a question because I thought that the balance between depth and coverage of ground and now leads us to continue in the Gemara. Of course, the shir about Kal Eretz Israel is a very important shir, a Zionist and important shir, and we won't miss it, and we'll give it. We'll find an opportunity to go further in depth to this, or to show all the other cases, but our sugya, where what counts as a kahal of Jews is only the Jews living in Israel. Okay, let's go to the Gemara. So open, please, kindly, in Gimel Amud Bet, everybody. Gimel Amud Bet. And you'll have here a surprising statement of Rabbi Yonathan. I hope that we'll finish the Gemara till the Mishnah, meaning we'll cover almost the whole page today. That's my plan. Pretty ambitious, but I think we can do it. And not a page, like 3/4 of a page. Amar Rabbi Yonathan. It's the second line from the top, right? Right after the word teiko. It's the second word in the second line from the top. Everyone has it? Amar Rabbi Yonathan, the real beginning of the page. And there, and I'll read it out loud and translate it, and it will be clear. Amar Rabbi Yonathan. Rabbi Yonathan said, who is Rabbi Yonathan? I won't give you all his biography, but Rabbi Yonathan is an Israeli Amora. I mean, we're not talking about Tanaim. We're talking about the period already of the Amoraim, of the Gemara, but Jerusalem and Israel one that is quoted here in the Babylonian Talmud. That's why he's labeled Rabbi. As you know, Babylonian Amora is always labeled Rav, Yehuda, Rav Huna, okay? And Israeli Amora is always quoted as Rabbi, okay? And the reason is the smicha, of course. All right, that has to do with the topic that I skipped about Kal Eretz Yisrael. And of course, Tanaim, that were all in Israel, almost all of them were in Israel, are called Rabbi, always. All right, so let's go. Amar Rabbi Yonathan. Meya sheyashvu lehorot. Ah, what a nice case. We know that Sanhedrin, how many people are in Sanhedrin? Chaverim, how many people are there in Sanhedrin?
70?
71. 71, because we always want to have an odd number, because we need to have a majority. Let's say there is a case. Let's say there is chas v'shalom, someone who was violated Shabbos, and we have witnesses, and he was warned, so l'charaskila, but then we're able to find the limud zchut. There was some procedural problem. The warning was not done well, whatever. There is a dispute between the Yanim, okay, and in order for him to be off the hook, meaning to be not the opposite of convicted. How do we say the opposite of convicted? What's the word?
Acquitted. Acquitted.
Acquitted? Acquitted. I learned a word. Okay, acquitted. So in order for him to be acquitted, we need 36. The least is minimum 36 against 35, right? So if we'll have 36 that are saying that he is okay, and 35 are convicting him, he will not be executed, okay? 36 versus 35. By the way, the opposite round will always have to have at least a majority of 2 to convict him. But in order to release him, for him to be acquitted, we need 36 against 35. But there, what I'm saying, we can't have a bait-in. We can't have a bait-in of 70, because 70 we can have a tie score, which we don't want, right? 35-35. So we always have to have an odd number. That's why the Sanhedrin Ktana, the little Sanhedrin, is 23, because we need to have an odd number. And the big Sanhedrin that is in Jerusalem is 71. Right. So here Rabbi Yonathan tells us, Meya sheyashvu lehorot. It's very interesting. Why do we need 100? And 71 is enough. But I don't know. There were many qualified dayanim, and for some reason, or maybe they thought it's a tough case. Let's say, Zish, if I'll go with our example, to decide whether this is a situation of pikuach nefesh and to allow to eat the chalev. So they felt we want more. So they said 100 people in order to give the hora'ah. Here we're talking, by the way, I just don't want to mix up here. The case about to acquit someone or to convict someone is a case of a din, of a trial. Here we're not talking about a trial. We're talking about the role of Sanhedrin as the people who give the rulings, halacha. Violate Shabbos, they're giving hora'ot, paskins, okay, as we say in English, paskin. Paskin for Klal Yisrael. Yeah, that's one of the roles of the Beit Din and Lishkat HaGazit, the Sanhedrin, they are the authority that are interpreting the Torah Shebal Peh, the oral law. They are the ones that are authorized to interpret the oral law, the Torah law, and they forgive rulings, right? Not only judgments, but they give rulings, okay? That's what this is the hat that we're discussing now, the hat of the Sanhedrin of giving rulings, issuing rulings. So it says that 100 were sitting together to give the ruling. Probably was a hard case, okay? So he says 100 that sat down together to give the ruling in Sanhedrin. Now look at what he's saying, a very big innovation. Ein chayavin, they're not chayavin, the bull. Let's say they gave an error ruling, right? They gave an erred ruling. Is that the right English? Erred rule?
Errant
ruling.
An errant ruling.
Errant ruling or mistaken ruling is that what?
Or an error.
An error, yeah. I said sometimes mistaken ruling. I don't know. Errant ruling. They gave an errant ruling, and the 100 people. So l'chora they're chayev, and the people of Israel followed that ruling. So they're chayev to bring the bull, right? So Rabbi Yonathan here gives a reservation. Ein chayavin ad sheyoru kulam. Woo! Look at that. It starts to sound like Ben Sora Omora, something a very theoretical law that can hardly be applicable. He says, in order that these 100 people will be obligated to bring a bull, they need to unanimously, all the 100 people to give the ruling. Meaning, if 99 people said to the people of Israel, eat chaylev, and one dayan said, no, I disagree, even though we know there is a law of majority ruling, no, they will all be exempt from what? From bringing a bull. They're chayav in a bull only if all of them unanimously gave the ruling. Shenemar, where does Rabbi Yonathan infer his innovative law? Shenemar, ve'im kol adat Yisrael yishgu, ad sheyishgu kulan. Wow. And by the way, you see that there is a line here that is erased. Ken? Ad shetifshot hora'ah b'chol adat Yisrael. Now, oh, no, that's the interpretation. I understand why he erased it, and I'll explain you why we don't erase it, so just let's first explain what he says. It says in the verse regarding the bull, it says, Ve'im kol adat Yisrael yishgu, kol adat Yisrael. The word is very clear that all the people of Israel should make an error. Ad shishgu kulan, till all of them are mistaken. And then it says, Ad shetifshot hora'ah b'kol adat Yisrael. Now, I would have understood the simple Hebrew for those who are Hebrew speakers. The Dafka that talks about the fact that all the Jews actually made the error, meaning that the actual eating of the chaylev was not done only by a majority of Jews, as we said till now, but that every single Jew ate the chaylev, which is very, very theoretical, okay? But that's not how Rabbi Yonathan understands the verse. Rabbi Yonathan understands that the word ve'im kol adat Yisrael yishgu, who made the error? Not the people who ate, they made the error too. But the source of the error is what? The Dayanim, the Sanhedrin. So the adat Yisrael, kol adat Yisrael that yishgu, are the ones that are issuing the ruling, i.e. the Sanhedrin. So when it says im kol adat Yisrael yishgu, it is referring to the judges, to the rabbis, the rabbis. So if all the rabbis will make an error, the chiyuv in har elem davar shel tzibur, what is defined as a public error of Am Yisrael? Only if all the Sanhedrin made the mistake. and then ad shetifshot hora'ah b'chol adat Israel, that could be a misleading statement. That's why the Maharsha erases it. The people that are not erasing it further interpret also this sentence the same way. Ad shetifshot hora'ah b'chol Israel, that the hora'ah, the ruling, was spread to all adat Israel. Adat Israel here means not the people, but the Dayanim. That the hora'ah was spread by all the Dayanim, issued by all the Dayanim. Okay, look at Rashi. Rashi explains exactly the way that we said. Ad shetifshot, it's the second line in Rashi, the right-hand column, second line. Ad shetifshot hora'ah b'chol adat Israel, dehainu otan sheyashvu lehorot. That's why he doesn't erase what the Maharsha erases. The Maharsha erases it because he thinks it will cause someone to be mistaken, to think that it talks about the people, okay? Rashi just interprets this line, which is originally written in the Gemara, and it seems he's right, that shot hora'ah, b'chol adat Israel, meaning that the hora'ah will be issued by all adat Israel, meaning by all the dayanim of adat Israel. Okay, let's say that. So now, Rabbi Yonathan actually has two chidushim here, and his biggest unique chiddush is the combination of the two. When each one of its own is already a chiddush, one is a bigger chiddush, one is a smaller chiddush, but still. One is that b'chlal there is a possibility there will be a Sanhedrin of 100. One would have thought that Sanhedrin is a fixed number of 71. Meaning, the very, very fact that there is an opportunity for a hora'ah of 100 people is a chiddush. But he doesn't stop here. He says even more. He says not only that there is an opportunity, there is a possibility, a halachic possibility of 100 people who issued a ruling. I'm telling you that in order to be chayav in a bull, that error ruling should be issued by all the dayanim unanimously. Why? Because it's written kol adat Israel, all, not majority, all. Interesting and innovative. Now, of course, that requires a clarification and an explanation and an explication. Why? Because we know that generally in the Torah, we do have a rule that majority counts. So why here, kol adat Israel, all the dayanim, in order to be chayav in this bull? Okay. If I return to our chakira, what is the real essence of the bull? Is the essence a kapara, an atonement of the blindness, the mistake of Sanhedrin, or the kapara is for the fact that the Jewish public, the Jewish nation, mistakenly as a public, as a klal, violated an avera of karet? Yeah, what is the essential component of the chiyuv? So to require this requirement, there will be all the dayanim. I would say that in order to define that as the action of the klal, you know what? I was trying to say something, but maybe why should one require really a ruling of all the dayanim for this case? So if I say that it's in order, you know what? I don't think it really depends on this chakira. Excuse me. Because I think that the basic thing is the following. In order to define something, either a chiyuv for a blindness of the central organization, or to define it as a public error, I need that there will be something that is called a valid ruling of the central institution. And here the question, what serves as what will be considered as the ruling of a klal? majority, or I need for that all? That's a question. Now, consequently, if the chiyuv is for the blindness, but it's a blindness of the central authority, or if the chiyuv is for the action, well, I need to define the action as not a mistake of individuals, but a mistake of the public. And maybe in order to create this, I need that the central authority of the Sanhedrin to define this as a public, a klal action, only if all of them are ruling. Okay, so it's really either way you can explain it. Let's go on. But it's an innovation. Now the Gemara challenges this chidush, this din of Rabbi Yonathan. Surprising. Amar Rav Huna Bareda Rav Yoshaya. Just to illustrate the point, I can convict a person and execute him if I have, let's say, 40 judges that are saying that he is chayiv, and 31 that are saying that he is okay. If I have 40 against 31, this guy will be executed. So the law of majority ruling regarding Beit Din is the known law in Sanhedrin, and it's applied even to very, very critical laws. So how come here Rabbi Yonathan says that in order for something to be defined as a public ruling, to be chayiv a public bull, you need that it will be unanimously. So the Gemara, of course, will challenge it, knowing that we know that in Beit Din there is a concept of majority ruling. Okay, so let's see. Let's go on. Amar Rav Huna Barei de Rav Yehoshua. Rav Huna, the son of Rav Hoshaya, Rav Huna, the son of Rav Hoshaya, wants to dafka support Rabbi Yonathan's innovation. Hachinami mistabra. It is indeed seems that he's right, he's saying, and I'll bring a proof. The Bekola Torah Kula, why? Because in all the Torah, we have a klal, a rule that says, Rubo Kechulo. We have a concept in all the Torah that says, Rubo Kechulo. Yeah? We have it in several places in Shas. Rubo Kechulo, translation, majority is like all. Rubo Kechulo. This is a concept that is a known concept in all the Torah. But here, regarding the case of public bull, Steve, Kol Haida. Here, the Torah changed its wordings and said, Kol Haida, all the people. The Torah could have said the same verse in a different phraseology. The Torah could have said, Ve'im yishgu adat Yisrael. Ve'im adat Yisrael yishgu. Not ve'im kol adat Yisrael yishgu. Torah could have said, Ve'im adat Yisrael yishgu. Now, adah is already saying that it's the public. So the Torah could have omitted the word kol. Torah could have said, Ve'im adat Yisrael yishgu. Now, no, what will be adat Yisrael? Of course, not a minority. A minority is not Adat Yisrael. We would know that a majority is already Adat Yisrael. Okay? The public. Because Rubo Kechulo. Because majority is like all. But the Torah here said an extra word. Torah here said, V'im kol Adat Yisrael yishku. So, Rav Huna infers from here in support of Rabbi Yonathan that if the Torah here used the extra word kol, it is in order to teach me that whereas in all the Torah, a majority is perceived, is counted as all. But here specifically, you need here kol. You need mamish, unanimous, that it will be all the dayanim who are issuing the ruling. By the way, I'm just saying it does seem that Rabbi Yonathan does put more the emphasis, the fact that he interprets the Kol Adat Yisrael as referring to the Dayanim and not to the people, that he's putting the emphasis on the Dayanim. That does seem intuitively. Anyway, so Rav Huna has his inference that in all the Torah, Ruba Kechula, and here it says Kol Haida, Hoil V'kach, since it's written here, Kol, Afilu Hen Mea, even if they're 100, we require that all the Dayanim unanimously will issue the ruling. Okay, interesting. Tnan. Now the Gemara goes on and elaborates and analyzes this din of Rabbi Yonathan that was supported by Rav Huna. Tnan, we have a Mishnah. Which Mishnah? Our Mishnah, the first Mishnah. Tnan, Horu Beidin. Beidin issued a ruling. V'yada echad mehen shetau. Remember that case? That was the second case in our Mishnah. Then one of the members of the Dayanim actually recognized that they're mistaken, that it's an error. Horu Beidin, v'yada echad mehen shetau. One of them knows that they're mistaken. O talmid v'ra'ui lahora, or a student that sat in front of them, and he is not only a student, he's a student that is qualified to become a member of them. And this member of Sanhedrin that knew that they're mistaken, or this student, he went ahead and followed their ruling, thinking that that is what he should do. Whether he actually ate the chaylev together with them, or they did and he followed afterwards, and even if they didn't do it, actually just ruled it and he did it, chayav, he has to bring individual chatas. Why? You could say, what do you mean? I'm a good Jew. I followed the majority ruling. I know I was a minority. I know I was right, but I'm a team player. So I ate the chaylev because that was the ruling of the Sanhedrin. I'm a member of Sanhedrin, but I'm a team player. No, you can't say that he is exempt from individual chatas. You will have to bring individual chatas. Because he was not a simple Jew that just relied on the ruling of Beit Din. He wasn't able to rely on the ruling of Beit Din because he knows and he qualifies to know that they're wrong. Therefore, it's his mistake. That's how we interpreted it. And therefore, he has to bring individual chatas. He is excluded. He's not an anus. Okay, that's what we said. He's not an anus like a simple Jew because he knows. And also, we can't say that he's exempt because this is the parsha, a potential. Had the majority followed it, then they would bring a public bull, and therefore, even though now only a minority, he's excluded from the parsha of individual chatas. He's not excluded. Why isn't he excluded? Because he is a member of Beit Din, and he's already not part of public in that sense. It's an individual. It's defined as an individual mistake. It's not connected to the ruling of Beit Din. Okay? That's how we explained it. We learned it several months ago. Now, the kasha that the Gemara says is the following. You see here that a member of Beit Din that didn't agree with them and followed their ruling, he needs to bring individual chatas. So the Gemara says, Hayhu de chayav. This guy is chayav. Ha'acher patur. We see from here that if it was just a simple Jew, he would have been patur. Ve'amai alo nigmara hora. Very good question. But we have a scenario. The Gemara makes a fantastic inference from that second half of our Mishnah. We see that if a dayan thinks that the Beit Din are mistaken and goes ahead but still follows their ruling, he has to bring individual chatas. But if the case was that 99 dayanim said that one should eat chaylev, and one dayan thinks that they're mistaken, and he says, I disagree. And as opposed to the case in the Mishnah, he is intellectually honest, and he doesn't eat the chaylev. Well, he's fine. Okay, right? Meaning 99 people are issuing a ruling to Beit Din, to the people of Israel to eat chaylev. one person knows that they're mistaken. The 100th Dayan knows that they're mistaken. And because he knows that they're mistaken, as opposed to the case of the Mishnah, he doesn't eat the chaylev. Great, so he's fine. But a Jew went ahead and ate the chaylev. Now that Jew, we can infer from here that he is chayev, right? That he's pater, that he's pater. Of course, we can infer only the dayan that knows that they're mistaken is chayev if he eats the chaylev. But we learned both in the first half of the Mishnah and from the inference here that if a simple Jew, the shita of the Mishnah, we saw that it's machloket later, but the shita of the Mishnah is that if a simple Jew in such a case eats the chaylev following the ruling of the 99 dayanim, he will be exempt from individual chatas, even because he's honest or because it's excluded from the parsha of individual chatas. It's really belongs to the category of public error, even though there is no public error here. But, says the Mishnah, according to Rabbi Yonathan, this is wrong. According to Rabbi Yonathan, he should be chayev, because what is the case, a potential case of public bull? Only when all the 100 agree. But if 99 are saying one thing and one person disagrees, then it's not a case of a public bull. If it's not a potential case of public bull, meaning the hora was not completed to be defined as a public hora, because in order that something will be defined as a public hora, you need that all the 100 people will agree unanimously. So if you need an agreement of all the 100, then l'chora, we can't understand the second half of the Mishnah. The second half of the Mishnah speaks about a case when one of the members of Beit Din knows that they're mistaken, and it says that if he does it, he is chayev, but it implies that in the same case of 99 versus 1, if a simple Jew will do it, he will be exempt from individual chatas. Why should he be exempt? He should not be exempt. There was no hora here, according to the Rabbi Yonathan's conceptualization. Now, of course, if you saw, there are some logical jumps here. This Gemara, we could have answered this thing. We could have said, potentially, that indeed, when there are 99 against 1, okay, then a public bull is not brought, but it's still considered hora in order to define the guy as an anus, at least, okay? But the Gemara, Dafka here, it seems that the Gemara, that's a big proof from this sugya is a big proof against the shita of anus, and we gave some arguments why it's not anus, and that the reason for the ptor of the individual that follows, the simple individual that follows a false ruling of Beit Din, the justification is not anus, but the fact that he's in the category of public error, even though here specifically only minority did it. Therefore, now, only if I assume this, I can understand the Gemara. The Gemara says, well, according to Rabbi Yonathan, the minute that it's not all the 100, then it's not a category of public error. It becomes back a category of individual error, okay? And he's not an anus. So that's a good proof from the Gemara, by the way, to this side of the Chakira. Parenthetical remark. Here, so the Gemara says, so why is he chayev? Why is he pater? Look at what the Gemara takes this kasha very seriously. The Gemara doesn't answer, says, no, he's pater because he's honest. No, the Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara says, what do we deal here? Amazing answer. Look at that. Mamash, a trick, a Jewish trick. You want to go around it somehow in order to defend Rabbi Yonathan. They're saying, no, I'll tell you what is the case here. 99 Dayanim are saying one thing. One person disagrees with them. And the case in the Mishnah is that he went ahead and followed the ruling, and then he needs to bring individual chatas. Okay, but how is that possible, B'chlal? Because we need, in order to create the scenario of public bull, we need 100 agreeing. So how come there is a case in the Mishnah of 99 against 1? We'll tell you, the Gemara says, you know what is the case? He didn't vocally protest. What he did, he knew that they're mistaken, but he nodded in his head. Okay, social psychology, okay, peer pressure. What happened is that he knew that they're mistaken. Now, he didn't want to lie and say, I agree, because he disagreed. So what he did is he only nodded in his head. Irkin Rosho. So technically, it is considered an official ruling of 100 unanimously, because he nodded. But still, he will be chayiv to bring chatas, individual chatas, because he knows that they're mistaken. And that's what counts. He doesn't have the exemption of relying on Beit Din because he is a qualified person that knows that it's a mistake, and therefore he has personal responsibility. Therefore, he brings individual chatas. So we were able to dance on the 2 weddings. That's what the Gemara did here. The Gemara, in order to save Rabbi Yonathan from this kasha, says, yes, indeed, in order for a hora'ah, a ruling to be defined as a hora'ah for a public bull, there is a need that there will be a unanimous decision. Here there was a unanimous. I'm using the right word, unanimous? Is that there? Okay. Here there was indeed a unanimous decision because everyone agreed, i.e. the one that knew that they're mistaken nodded in his head. But he knew that they're mistaken. And therefore he needs to bring individual chatas. Okay? That's the answer of the Gemara. Let's go on. Tashma. The Gemara now wants to bring another proof against Rabbi Yonathan. Horu Beit Din. Beit Din issued a ruling. V'yada echad mehen shetau. And one of the members of the Beit Din of the Sanhedrin knew that they're mistaken. V'amar lahen, to'im atem. He told them, here, this guy didn't nod in his head. He told them, you guys are wrong. Hare elu pturim. They are exempt. Yeah? One second. Hold on one second. Okay. It's a Mishnah in Daled Amud Bet. Yeah, they're quoting a Mishnah in the next daf. Beit Din said to Eit Chaleb, one of them knew that they're mistaken, and he told them, you are wrong. In that case, for some reason, the Sanhedrin are exempt from bringing the bull, when he told them that they're wrong. Okay, we'll learn this din later, but at any rate, the Gemara here makes an inference. Tama de'amar lehem to'im atem depturim. The only reason why they're exempt from the bull is because he told them explicitly that they're wrong. Hashatik mishtak chayavin vegamar lahorah ve'amai halohoru kulan. He said, the Gemara makes an inference that if he is just quiet, not nodding in his head, but quiet, he's silent, that in such a case that there'll be chayat. And the Gemara says, no, you need a unanimous ruling. And there was no unanimous ruling because the guy didn't say that he agrees and he didn't say that he disagrees. He was just silent, okay? And you see that they're exempt from the bull only when he tells them explicitly that they're wrong. So how do you say it's an attack on the previous answer? The previous answer claimed that in order to be defined as a public ruling, you need that the guy will nod in his head. Here the Gemara says you don't need a nod in the head. It's enough just that he's silent. Well, if it's enough that he's silent and he disagrees with them, then that's against Rabbi Yonathan, who requires a unanimous ruling. So the Gemara easily answers it. They didn't all issue the ruling. One was silent. Amrei, Achanami kagon she'irkin barosho. No. You're making a mistake here. It's not that there are three categories. Telling them explicitly, you guys are wrong, being silent, and nodding in the head. No. The Mishnah there says that they're exempt when he is telling them explicitly, you guys are wrong. What is the other option? That he's nodding in the head. There's no option of being silent. It's either nodding in the head, or one has either to nod in his head or to say, you guys are wrong. Okay? So this is Hachanami Kegon She Derchayev, only when he's nodding in his head. Okay, next Kashya. Mativ Rav Misharshia. Rav Misharshia challenges. Samchu Rabotenu al divrei Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, val divrei Rabbi Eliezer ben Tzadok, shayu omrim, ein gozrin gzera latzibor, ela im ken rov hatzibor yacholin lamod ba. Okay. There was a situation that there was a gzera of the sages over 18 things. 18 things that were mutter. The sages, Shammai and Hillel, and other, they decided on 18 things to prohibit them. And one of them was the oil of, and a certain oil. And they saw that this Gzera decree was not accepted by the people of Israel. So therefore, a group of rabbis canceled that Gzera. Why? Because they're saying you're not issuing a decree on the tzibur, on the public, unless the majority of the people could actually act on it, could actually keep it. Now the Gemara says, so you have a rule. One is not, the sages are not doing a gzera unless the majority of the people of Israel can actually accept it and follow it. If the majority of the people cannot accept the gzera, then the gzera, you cancel it. Now, Amar Avada Barahava, Maikra, what is the pasuk that is the source for this concept, that you don't make a decree on the majority of the tzibur unless the tzibur can hold to it? The pasuk says, B'me'era atem noarim, v'oti atem kov'im, hagoy kulo. Okay. B'me'era atem noarim, meaning you are doing a gezerah, but then you Jews are not following it, oti atem kovim, then you violate it, hagoy kulo. All the people are not following that me'era, that gezerah. Now the Gemara infers, it's written hagoy kulo, all the people. And still they hold as that even though the word kulo, that's a big question on him, on Rabbi Yonathan. Even though in the verse here it says hagoy kulo, still this is a source that even if the majority of the people of Israel are not able to follow the decree, that you cancel it. So you see here that the verse says all the people, hagoy kulo, and yet still what it means is rov hatzibur yecholin la'amod ba. You see that rubo kechulo, hagoy kulo. Tiyuvta de Rabbi Yonathan, tiyuvta. This is indeed a knockout. The Gemara says this is a big kashya on Rabbi Yonathan. But the Gemara still says, so why did the Torah didn't say ve'im adat Yisrael yishku? And if the people of Israel will err, why did the Torah says ve'im kol adat Yisrael yishku? Why do I need this kol for? Why does it say kol? Achikamar i'ika kulam avya hora'a ve'ilo lo avya hora'a, period. And we'll stop here. It tells me a much simple din. The reason why it says kol, that I need the presence of all the dayanim. I need the presence of all the quorum. If all of them are there, then it's indeed a valid ruling of the Sanhedrin. And if they're not all present there, then it's not. But it's not that they need, it needs to be unanimously. So you see, the sugya started with Rabbi Yonathan saying that you need a unanimous ruling in order to be obligated in a public bull. And the sugya concluded against him because of the kasha from Ein Gozrin Gzera LaTzibur, Ela Im Ken Rov HaTzibur Yachol La'amod Ba, Rubo Kechulo. What? You see from here, yeah, you see from here that indeed when it's written the word kol, it doesn't mean kol. It's enough that you'll have a majority. The only thing is that you need all the people there. Of course, the Achronim asked justifiedly, why do I need a pasuk for that? It is so simple that you need the quorum of all of them in order that will be considered a ruling of 71 people. Why do I need the word kol from? Meaning the answer of the Gemara here is a little weak. Okay, we will discuss with that later. I'll just point out one thing and then we'll finish for today. Rav Lichtenstein, Justify makes a distinction between two terms that appear in the Gemara. One is rubo kechulo. Rubo kechulo means that it says that in all the Torah, when a majority is considered like all. That's one statement. A majority is considered like all. Another total different conceptually, though it could lead to the same result sometimes, is that you follow the majority, meaning that I rule like the majority. Or let's say I don't hold a decree that was issued upon the people of Israel unless the majority of the people of Israel can follow it. Sometimes I'm saying the majority is not like all, but I follow, let's say in the cases of doubts, I decide the ruling regarding a certain doubt according to a majority, according to probability, meaning that it's a rule, what's my conduct in a case of a doubt? But that doesn't mean that the majority is like all, okay? It's two different statements. We'll return to that later, okay? It doesn't mean that the minority doesn't exist anymore. It just means that I make my conducts according to the majority, okay? As opposed to the term rubo kechulo, when I'm saying a majority is like all, okay? So, or a majority is considered all, as if the minority was canceled, disappeared. Okay, so I wish you all Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom ומזל טוב.
תודה, תודה.